Welcome to Discovering. Tonight we'll take a look at some of the biggest bucks shot in the UP. We're at Hilltop RV in Escanaba for the 18th Annual WYKX Hilltop RV Deer Poll. And a look at processing your deer. Sit back, put your feet up, it's deer season and time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
We'd like to welcome everybody tonight. This is the 18th year that we've been doing the deer poll, and we've got a little change in venue. We're at the Hilltop RV Superstore in Escanaba. An outstanding crowd again tonight, and we started out a little bit slow because we weren't sure we're going to see a lot of deer, and the numbers are already climbing. We've had deer and trucks lined up. A lot of heads are coming in because of the warmer weather, and the deer have had to get them in and process, but we're seeing some nice bucks. The biggest one so far that we've seen is a 10-point buck in the 130 class. That's always a green score, and we've got some close contenders coming in, and as has been in the past, there's a chance we might see somebody come walking through the door right at the end of the night and top that. So this is a great event. We've got UP Whitetails represented here with Al Lettenhofer, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, once again registering deer, and as you know, they use this important data to help figure out what harvest numbers are. It's just another layer of information, but it's a good concentration because the biologists, technicians can be talking with all of the public. We also want to mention that when you do bring your deer in, we have a drawing as we always do, and it's more of a fellowship deal. It's not necessarily big buck, because we do a random drawing either at the Deer Hunters Report or here at the Deer Poll, and we're going to do a drawing for a youth and an adult. Both a youngster and an oldster are going to be able to get themselves a gun, courtesy of UP Whitetails here and Deerwine's Auto Body and the other ones. So it's a good reason to come in, but the best part is all of the families that are coming in here and enjoying this event. It's kind of like a holiday. Sure.
Well, I'll tell you, the first time I heard that it was going to be here at Hilltop RV, I was stoked because obviously going there all the years at the casino and everything, knowing what we had to deal with weather and being outside in the cold and kind of poor lighting and parking was a little bit weird, but coming here, just being in Escanaba and having that local kind of atmosphere, awesome setup, just awesome. It turned out so great tonight. We're really happy. We were able to provide some hot dogs and hot coffee and of course cider and hot chocolate, and just be able to come into our huge showroom, the heated showroom that is, and get warmed up in between the weigh-ins. And Tim Kabasic did another stellar job, of course. Mike Flavor, WYKX, Kim Rabatoy. You know, I can go on and on with all the people who helped this effort, you know, get us out and get everybody knowledgeable of where the new location was going to be. And we're super excited about it. And we can't wait until next year because obviously this first year moving into it, kind of learning the ins and outs and what we want to do for next year made it a great event, and it's really going to be a lot better next year. So for everyone out there, Hilltop RV right here in Escanaba, it's the place to be.
Okay, so last year I got a spike horn and I was pretty upset about it. So this year I decided I was going to try some new things because some of my friends told me that I should make sure that I didn't smell like a girl. So I went and got all that soap that you get from the store, and I got washed my clothes the night before, hung them out on the line, did all that stuff, body wash with the scent-free stuff, had the duck bomb and sprayed that out of the blind. So I got out there early in the morning, and my daughter came out there with me, and she didn't like it. She's like, oh my God, she's complaining, there's no deer in. So I'm like, you gotta go back while there's no deer. So she did, and then all of a sudden, I started watching the deer at about 8 o'clock in the morning. I watched them on my scope. I had 4 does in, and I watched them on the scope for all the way until I shot at 9:20. And so I'm waiting for something to come in because the does kept perching up their ears and looking the other way and all this stuff. So finally, my blind was here, the bait was here, and then the does were here. So the buck was coming in from this side, and I couldn't see it. All I could see was his breath. So he just kind of walked nonchalantly, walked over to the doe, and I'm like, oh my God, look at the rack. I got excited and I had to shoot while he was walking, and I've never done that before. So I texted and I said I shot, and he said stay put, and I said I think he's huge. So when he came up, he was down, and he said, oh my God, that is big. So he hasn't been real forgiving the whole time because he does all the baiting and he puts the heater in the blind and everything, and I just go out and shoot the trigger and I get the buck, I guess. So that's what he told me. He said, that's my buck. They weighted at the Rusty Rail 155 pounds, 16 3/4 spread.
We'll be back with more of the deer poll shortly. If you were lucky enough to hang a buck on the pole, it's now time for the next step, processing your deer. I met with Kevin at the Powers Spalding Locker Plant to get the scoop on what's involved.
All the deer we get in, we register. We write down their license number, so we make sure we keep the deer with the ticket. And then we bring them down and we start skinning them. Yeah, there's lots of different ways to do it. This is the way I do it. We always start on the ground. Skin the legs down first. You know, if it's in the 40s, you can usually leave them hang at camp if you got them in a shaded area, because if you keep them in the sun too long, the hair kind of falls out of them. Even if it's in 40-degree weather, if you can get them in the shade, it's better. When you get a deer, once you got it out, and there's lots of blood and stuff in the stomach cavity, if you can get some water and wash them out, it just saves the deer so much better. It keeps them clean. Your meat will taste a lot better. Length of time to hang a deer, if you can get cooled down, most of the time you're going to have a deer that's even, this time of year it's going to be supposed to be down in the 20s at night. So that deer's going to get froze up a little bit. If it hangs for 2-3 days, it's plenty. There's no dead set rule on how long to hang meat, how long to hang it. It's not like beef where we tell them to hang it for at least 10 days. So if you get it hanging for a couple days, it works out pretty good. Some people skin from the head down. I prefer to skin from the hindquarters down. It's all a personal preference, I guess. Early bow season, the hides aren't really thick. And I'll tear them as I'm pulling them down, but when it starts getting colder and they get a thicker pelt on them, the hide gets thicker, and the sooner you skin the deer, the better. It's easier to get the hide off. A lot of guys will skin them as soon as they get them back to camp and just leave the meat hang. And you can buy game bags and stuff to cover the meat with so that the animals and birds can't get into it. But we do Cape deer for taxidermy work. Obviously, it's going to be a totally different process than this. But a lot of people are doing European mounts, so we just give them the whole head back and they bring it down to whoever's doing the mounting for them.
So what we're doing when we're at, when you bring a deer into a DNR check station, we're getting some information, we're getting location. So we look at a map, we're getting your town and range, and then we age your deer for you by looking at teeth wear, and I'm going to go through that in a minute. And then we take the diameters of the antlers, and all that's put into a big database, and then we look at trends over time. So now I'll show you how we, go about aging a buck. So due to the fact that he's gonna mount this buck, we can't cut it. But what we can do is we can use a jaw bar to spread it, and we can look in there and give it our best guess. And what we're looking at, and it's really hard to see here because we can't cut the jaw, looking at the teeth wear in the very back tooth and then the wear throughout all of the teeth. And from what I can see here on this deer, looking at all the wear, it looks to be like a 3.5-year-old. And that's just different wear that's hard to see in this. And then we measure the antler bases. This one's 27. So that one's 28 millimeters. 31 that way. Then we measure it this way and it's 28, so 30. So 31 and 28 millimeter on the bases. 10 point? 8 pointer. 8 point? Okay.
Broke off that broad.
All right, the next step is start processing it. What we do is we take the front legs off. Everything is pretty much a joint or a separation between bone and meat. There's a flat bone that's in here, and you just get behind that flat bone and it just pretty much peels right down. Shoulder pieces here, you want to try to trim all the outside fat off it. Again, it's just trying to get underneath the fat cap, and it's like filleting a fish. People who use these for roast, most of the time they bone them out and use them for hamburger or their sausage meat. Now if you look at the leg piece, it comes to a point right here. There's a joint right here, and what I usually do is I cut right down here, find the joint, separate it, and then you've got two pieces to work with. And of course, the more deer you do, the easier it is to know where the bones are, what the bone structure is like. This is just a big flat bone on one side. Of course, after you do about 4,000 or 5,000 deer, this is what you get to learn how to do. Most deer I've ever cut in 1 year was 1,000. Some of the guys that used to tan their own hides, they used to use this piece for scraping their hides down when they're doing their tanning. This inner fat that you see, that's not quite as bad as the tallowy stuff on the outside. They're real heavy stuff, so most of that goes in the burger. And this piece, I just worked down from the shank. When you get around the joints, you're going to see there's a lot of tendon and ligament stuff in there. Just try to stay away from that because all it is tough and it doesn't usually go through the grinder very well. It's not something you really want to eat. I don't fuss with the silver skin too much on any of the pieces that I'm using for hamburger. When we do the back strap, I take the silver skin off of that because when that doesn't usually cook all the way through, so then that's what makes everything so tough. Like I said, most of these small pieces, you try to get all the fat off you can because you don't want any of that tallow in your burger. Can get real nasty. I personally don't do a lot with the rib meat. There's so much tallow in it, you can never get all the fat out of it. But wherever you see there's red meat, you can trim it off and clean it up and use it for either hamburger or sausage meat or whatever you use it for. The neck, some people use that for a roast. Otherwise we bone it out and put it in the hamburger or sausage or whatever they want. There's a big piece of yellow cartilage that runs down the middle of it, and that can be really nasty when you grind it. Neck roast make great porchetta. I usually add a little bit of pork to it, roll it up and tie it, and use porchetta seasoning on it, or you can make any kind of roast out of it. And you can pre-season it because you can freeze it with the seasoning in, so it really makes it pretty nice. And then when you cut the loin off, you'll see where the tenderloin is on it. When you get up to the top of the tenderloin here, that's about where I cut. These are your inner loins, what they call a tenderloin. All you do is just get in there and follow the inner part of the backbone around. The cleaner you keep your deer, the better it'll be. The more meat you'll have left on those. A lot of guys will take these out right away because they dry out so fast. And your back loins, you can follow the back of the deer right down. Just get your knife in there and follow that bone right to the back. And then just take your knife and just work it around the rib cage. And just grab it and just peel it out. all this blue skin can be really tough when you cook it, so you want to try to get it off. Just get your knife underneath that blue skin and just work it off. And it's tough enough. You can pull on a little bit as you're peeling back. And what I usually do when I cut them into steaks, I take about a 1/2 inch, cut partway through the middle, and then cut all the way through, so you got a nice kind of a medallion. Some people just take these and cut them in half or cut them in 3 pieces, cook them whole. It'll stay a lot moister. The bigger the piece is when you cook it, the more moist it'll stay.
Well, we got in the bind about 7 o'clock, and in less than an hour it showed up alone. And at first its butt was facing us, then it moved, and then it started shaking, and then it went behind a tree, and then I shot it. I was hunting with my grandpa. He shot the 8. It weighs 180. This is my 3rd. I think I'll be okay with a 6 or an 8.
I separate the hind quarter. I just try to follow the bone structure around on the hip part of it and find out where the socket bone is and try to cut around it. And once you've done it, you found the bone structure, the way the bone structure is on the deer, the easier it is. And then you start cleaning up the back part of it. Take all the dried bloodshot stuff off the top, all the fat. Try to get some of the blue skin off. You don't have to get it all off. I'm going to knife cut this hind quarter up. There's a bone that comes to a tip right here. Just cut down until you hit the hard bone. This piece would be like your tip. It makes an excellent roast. Otherwise you can cut this into steaks also. And I take it, follow this round bone around. Hind quarter, you're going to get your steaks or your roast. Your better roasts are going to come out of your hind quarter because it's a more solid piece of meat. On a beef, this would be like your round. And a lot of people will take this and will cut it in half and they'll use it for a roast. Otherwise you can make steaks out of it. Just kind of square it up. And I cut them about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch thick and you get a nice round steak out of it. This heavier inner fat in between the muscles on the hind, you want to try to get that out because that's really tallowy. A lot of guys will use the hind quarters for jerky. The jerky I make here is usually ground. I do some muscle stuff, but it's usually ground. It's easier for me to work with. You don't have to let it marinate quite as long because it's ground and the seasonings mix right with when you grind it. I usually grind it, mix the spices up with it, let it sit overnight so it gets a stiffer consistency. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut down to the inner part of it. You're going to see where the muscle starts to separate. Just keep following that separation around. And all you're doing is taking the round apart in the muscle separations. This would be like your bottom part of the round. Patch of blue skin right here. Tendons and stuff in the inner part of the meat. Just get your knife under that blue skin and just peel it off. Because if you're going to make jerky, this is the stuff that's going to be the toughest part of your jerky, is blue skin if you keep it on there. Here again, this is the top part of the round. Jerky, most guys will slice it really thin. Everything we do here, everything is separate. If you get sausage made, it's all your own meat. You get your own meat back. We don't mix big batches. We try to keep our batches like a 10-pound size. It's easier for me to work with when it's in a size like 10 pounds or whatever. Each person's venison is mixed on its own. Most people will get pork put in it. Some will get suet. I've had people that wanted bacon mixed with their hamburger, which is pretty good. And usually when people come in, they ask what to make out of it. Some people don't know. You know, sometimes it's their first deer, so We kind of suggest what other people get. Usually it's just steaks, roasts, their chops, and then hamburger. And we make sausage. We do smoked sausage. We do summer sausage. We'll do brats. I make 11 different kinds of brats, breakfast sausage. And there you have it.
We were a little concerned that the wind would keep people away tonight, but we actually had a pretty good turnout. It started out slow, but by the middle of the event, we pretty much had the parking lot full of nice looking bucks. This year, our numbers were pretty similar to last year. We checked somewhere between 35 and 40 bucks in tonight. A lot of them were 2.5-year-old bucks, some 3.5-year-olds. We did have a few 4.5-year-olds, but some really nice bucks, good antler development. And overall, I think a lot of people set their expectations low this year because of the impact of the winters. And our numbers are down, but there's still a lot of people out there that are being successful. And fortunately, we had some good weather at the start of the season this year. So things are looking good, and we'll see how things turn out for the rest of the season.
We're going to give away one of the muzzleloaders from UP Whitetails Association, a beautiful inline with a scope, and that's going to Aaliyah DeRusha. Aaliyah DeRusha, she here? Oh, here she is! Come on up here.
Congratulations!
Yep, 10-point buck, and last year you got a big 8. 6 last year. And you're going to go muzzleload? Yeah. Hey folks, congratulations. I've been here for a long time to come. Mark Kleinman from Wolfson, you are the winner. This is the recent Mark? This is the recent Mark, the fastest guy, huh? Yeah. There, Mark Kleinman, congratulations. Another winner of a muzzleloader courtesy of UP Whitetails. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Well, that's it for tonight. If you'd like to keep tabs on what's coming up on Discovering or see where we've been, you can join us on Facebook or go to 906outdoors.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on Discovering.